It is 2 o'clock and we'll get started. Welcome everybody to webinar 2 here of remote learning with GeoGebra. Today we're going to focus here. Now many of you have seen this on Twitter and Facebook, but what we're going to do is yesterday we did bullet 1 and 2. All right, and if you didn't get to that webinar, it's on GeoGebra's YouTube channel. It's the first video there. I could drop the link here later. But today we're going to learn how we can create our own customized student-centered discovery lessons in GeoGebra. We're gonna keep it very simple, okay? Because many of us as teachers, sometimes we don't want every student doing the same thing at the same time. Life doesn't work that way. We often will assign a certain engaging task to a subset of students, right? While we want another set of subset to work on something that has more scaffolding or maybe less scaffolding. Like yesterday, if you look at yesterday's video, we took a resource that was heavily scaffolded and we deleted all the steps and we made it a challenge as to, hey, students, can you figure it out? That kind of a thing. All right, so we're gonna custom make something from scratch. All right, we're gonna probably do 2 items here. And this webinar may be over before the hour, but who knows? But we'll definitely end it by 3. But if you have not gone here yet, and this is your first webinar here, I'm going to drop in the chat just a quick place where you can start. Right here, tinyurl.com/ggbres, and that'll take you right over here, okay? There's some people in it already, but these are basically ready-to-use resources, if you will. You can copy them and edit them like we showed you yesterday, but everywhere throughout a lot of middle and secondary curricula, there is a lot that you can dive into that you could use to actively engage your students with respect to formative assessment, Algebra 1. You see the things here. Each image is its own hyperlink, okay? And if you're interested for more teaching ideas for teaching and learning, if you have your phone with you, feel free to take a quick picture. That barcode there, it'll take you to just a page where you can access, whatever on the 3, I think forgot what they were, but I put ideas for teaching and learning using GeoGebra and EdTech every day or every other. So feel free to take a picture of that and do what you do with it. But again, just keep that bookmarked, if you will, and then you can go back to it at some point later. But these are kind of ready to use. But I wanted to throw that in there anyway. But where we're gonna go right here and right now is to GeoGebra's main page, okay? GeoGebra.org, okay? And please, if you have not done so yet, please create an account to do so. You will see the word sign in where my picture is right there. So make sure you sign in now. If you have an account, go ahead and do so. If you're brand new to GeoGebra, feel free to click sign in, go to create account, and basically just sign in through one of the platforms or through an email. Okay. I'll give you all a minute to do that. Hey Siri, set a timer for 1 minute. Oh, she'll keep you in touch, give you time here, because some of you may, yeah. There we go.
Okay. Your timer is set for 1 minute.
Perfect. Just as you're creating your account there, taking the time to do that, many of you know GeoGebra has lots of ready-to-use resources, over 1 million, okay, that have been put up here by students and teachers all over the world. GeoGebra is all about community. It is a community of sharing. GeoGebra is made up of apps, which we're going to play with a little bit today, and also resources as well, okay? And so, yes, I can show the QR code. You got it. There you go. GeoGebra is made up of apps and resources. And, we talked about editing resources yesterday, but today we're going to create resources and activities from scratch. And this is something that many teachers I find within the schools that I work with don't like doing, because many teachers like to use something that's kind of pre-made already that they can just copy and maybe edit on their own, just slight changes. There we go, whatever. But some teachers want to actually go deep in and say, hey, you know what? I want to create from scratch. And it's actually very, very easy to do here. It's easier than you think. So we're going to do that. You got it. You're welcome. So with that said, hopefully you're in the GeoGebra account right now. You're logged into GeoGebra. Okay. So one of the things that you can do to start if you will. Some people like to start easy, and easy. If you go over here to your profile, okay, your home, your news feed, resources, but go to your profile right here. And if you're brand new to GeoGebra, you will not see anything here, right? You'll just basically see an empty page here. But if you, the way you can actually create a resource, one way to do it is just go to the word create right up here. You can create a folder. It's kind of like your own personal storage. I put stuff in here to organize my stuff. But if you go to create and hit activity, you will see a blank copy of what we kind of worked with yesterday. When we copied an activity in yesterday's webinar, or webinar 1 out of this series, we just simply had all this filled out, but this is like a blank, this is a blank page that you can fill up, sample title, right? And we could go ahead here and basically, you know, add some text and say, hey, hello, students, please do blah, 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 right? And you could actually format this text here. You can make it bold. You can make it colorful. You can make it a hyperlink if you really want with that chain, that link there, right? The sky's the limit there. You could also highlight this and you could make it, you know, super, super big, right? Or very small. Again, you can do whatever you want with it. Okay, but that's how you could type in text. If you need to put some math in here, go to this little, go to that little symbol right there. That's kind of like your equation editor or bar there, but you can actually just look for things. All the Greek letters are there, all the operators, everything you need there. You could type math in here pretty easily. If you are LaTeX savvy, again, people say LaTeX, but LaTeX, if you type in like /sqrt, that's LaTeX, whoops, /s, that's square root, so x plus 2, you know what I mean? Hit save, and then there it is. I put fraction there, but you get what I'm saying, all right? But it formats it for you automatically anyway. So you can input text here. You can input a hyperlink. I've embedded a Google Slides thing in here. You can just, or any HTML code you could put here, it'll put it right in. All right. YouTube videos, or image, PDFs, whatever. I've linked Google Docs here. I'm not a big fan of PDFs because PDFs to me are static. They don't change, right? But if you want to input a Google Doc here, you could just go to you can input a Google Doc either in a text. You just simply say here, look here, and then put the Google Doc link right there. Or you could do it in the URL, whatever. Again, this is just a quick thing here. But what we're going to do now, we go to add element. Let's add let's go to where it says GeoGebra, right? We want students to interact with the content that they're learning and discovering. So why not have a GeoGebra applet embedded within? So I go to GeoGebra. Now I could do one of 3 things. I could search for something that exists already. Many of you might see my area to circle one come up, or just, again, I'm logged in as me, so I think my stuff kind of comes up. You can upload an applet from software. GeoGebra has software for computers that looks like this. It's called Classic 5. But you know, many students do not have, they have Chromebooks. So if you go to a conference with a Chromebook, you know, this software is going to be useless and meaningless to you. Okay. But you could also, but where we're going to go now is, well, create an applet. Okay. Let's see, there's a question here. Can I see my folders? If you're logged in, you can, yes. You have to be logged in first, but you cannot find your folders in this menu here, no. You would have to go back to your profile page, okay? But one little trick that I have learned here, let's say like I have for example, let's actually search for an applet first before we create blank. I have a slope one. Whoops. If I type in slope, I might be able to find something here. But let's suppose you find somebody else's resource that you really, really love, right? And you just thought like, oh man, where did I see that thing? Well, one thing you could do is go back to GeoGebra, all right? And let's say, I don't know, let me just type in triangle angles. This is a little trick here, little hack. Let's say you want this animation here. I'm just laying here, right? See how this is just an animation of the triangle angle sum theorem? Let's say I want to put that in my brand new resource that I'm creating for students, right? It shows what it shows. But what I could do is if I can highlight this, you see that the resource ID right here? If I copy that, right? If you copy that in a new tab, go back to the worksheet you're creating. If you paste that ID in there, it'll make it the only option that shows up, if that makes sense. Now I can add it and see, now I can say to kids, hey, study this animation, right? And what do you notice, if you will, right? And so I can keep it there and whoop-de-doo, right? So that's how I could take somebody else's thing and just throw it right in mine. Again, remember, GeoGebra is about sharing. It is a community, okay? But I personally don't like stuff like this. I mean, yeah, I created this more so as a reinforcer of something that students should already remember, and it's a quick just to recall. But I want students to say build from scratch. That's the whole point. Constructive, active, engaging learning. We want students to construct. So I'm going to delete this altogether, okay? And we're going to simply we're going to simply create a resource from scratch. So I'm going to go to GeoGebra, and what I'm going to do this time is go to create applet instead. We're going to create right on the spot, okay? Right here and right now. So we'll go create applet. I'm going to actually choose now. People are like, well, Tim, which one do I hit? You know, like I recommend just doing. Let's just go to geometry for now. Again, we're going to create a discovery lesson in the next 20 minutes or less where students in Algebra 1 and Geometry, and even Algebra 2 can review, where they can rediscover something pretty quickly. A very, very popular concept. So if you click on Geometry here, you'll see a creation window here. If you go to the lower right over here, you can actually sort of like make that a little bit bigger, if you will. Okay. Now, this is GeoGebra's classic app, okay, if you will. It's got all the tools here. And let's go over, let's right click, or you right click or just go here, go to the style bar. I'd like to show the grid, okay? So the style bar there, and I'm gonna leave the axes off for now. I could show them or just hide them. It doesn't matter here, right? But what we're gonna do is actually, here's what I want to make a discovery lesson for students. I want them to be able to graph a line first. So hear me out. I want students to graph a line, okay? And then next I'm going to prompt them to measure its slope, which the slope tool is under here somewhere. Got to find it. Ah, there it is. Slope. Here I just touched the line. Wow, the slope of that line is 57 hundredths, right? Okay, great. Now, next I'm going to have students in this discovery warm-up lesson that I'm making. They're gonna go to the parallel line tool, okay, and they're gonna make a line parallel to that line. So I go here, touch the line, and then okay, anywhere else, right there, okay. So they make a parallel line, and then algebra and geometry teachers, I'm going to ask them to measure the slope by touching it, turn it off. And then I'm going to ask students, what do you notice? And then, you know, the Algebra 1 students quickly discover, oh yeah, that makes sense, right? And then your geometry and your Algebra 2 students should be all like, yeah, duh, we learned that last year, right? So this lesson could be used as a quick discovery lesson, or it could be used as a rediscovery warm-up prompt, if you will, if that makes sense, right? But I want this to be super easy for students. And so I don't want my students to be like looking through 8,000 tools just to try to find like 3 or 4 tools that they need. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna clean up all this crap out of here. We're only gonna give the kids the tools they need, because that makes life easier. I have talked with many teachers in districts with whom I've worked, and they say that GeoGebra kind of intimidates them because of the overwhelming number of tools here, right? So we're going to learn how to clean it up. And also, another thing we're going to do here is I want to get rid of those minor grid lines. You see what I mean? It's just a little cluttered. That's just my preference. You take it or leave it. But here's how you can alter some settings here. If you go to the menu here, the hamburger bun, all right, let's actually go to where it says, actually here, I'm sorry, right click, go right click in the graph anywhere, and go to the graphics tab right there. Again, right click anywhere on the graph, just not on a line or a point. Go to graphics. And would you please go to the x-axis tab? And I want to turn off I want to turn off what I call automaticity. Click on distance and let's type in 1, enter. This is going to force the grid to go scale by ones, because I want the run to kind of always be 1 here, and I want students to always kind of go on lattice points. So I'll go to y-axis here, turn it off, and go to 1, enter, right? X-axis, I lock it. I'm going to let every x increment be 1, every y increment be 1, and for the grid, I don't like major and minor. I want it to be just simply major. Doesn't that look a lot cleaner? And to me, it does, right? Here's another thing where it says point capturing. I'm gonna actually say fixed to grid. This is pretty powerful because many teachers want their students to just simply have points beyond lattice points, or having integer coordinates if we threw coordinates in there, right? So if you choose fixed to grid and then eggs out, watch what happens. See how A and B are kind of forced to lie on integer coordinates there, and it makes life a lot easier. Okay. Now, kind of like this. So I want kids to simply, so the goal here is to make a resource where kids make a line, they measure the slope. They make a parallel line, they measure that slope, they move points around and say, oh my gosh, you know what? I just discovered, you know, that if two non-vertical lines are parallel, then they have the same slope. That's what I want my students to walk away from, having engaged with GeoGebra for not even 2 minutes, if that makes sense. Okay. There were questions here. How did I get there after the right click? So what I did, Mark, basically is I right clicked in graphics. I went to the graphics tab right here. And then I went to x-axis, the x-axis tab being right here. Check that, make it 1. Do the same for the y-axis tab. Make it 1. And then for the grid, I just showed major grid lines and I made it fixed to grid to keep A and B locked on corner or lattice points. Okay. And by the way, you could also fix the grid up. There's a shortcut style bar here. See how here it says fix the grid. I could change some settings right here, if that makes sense. You know, I could show axes, not, it's a quick little style bar. It's pretty nice. All right. All right. So, so now what I want to do next is clean up all these tools, because I don't want my kids having to look through all those things, and neither do you, right? So one thing that, so here's what we do. We go to the menu here. All right. We scroll down, go to where it says tools, the tools icon right here. Again, what we're going to do in the next 3 minutes is clean up the toolbar to give the students only the tools they need to build the construction and leave all the other crap out. Click on tools, and then what you want to do is go to customize toolbar. All right, now I just realized that kind of looks messy. So hold on a second. Let's actually, because it doesn't disappear, it's kind of overlaid on top there. So let's just hit apply for a second there. Just hit apply. We didn't do anything yet, but what I want you to do is go up here. So only to see better. We're gonna hide the grid so we could see what we're doing better. Show grid, hide grid. Let's just hide the grid for right now. All right, and let's actually let's go back to the tools one more time. Menu. Customize toolbar, it's under tools, customize toolbar. That looks a lot nicer. See how it's like, I can deal with A and C being the way. So here's how this works, okay? Anything that you see on the left side is gonna be shown in the toolbar up above when students go to construct. Anything on the right side is gonna be removed. So what I recommend that teachers do is, first of all, drag everything over there, because underneath this point tool, there's 1,000 more tools that you don't see. So let's just drag it over. drag it over. Now, teachers ask me, Tim, is there a way to select them all and do them all at once? And right now, no. But again, this only takes 20 seconds or less, right? Just drag everything over. If any of you have watched that cable TLC, I think that show Hoarders, you know, on TLC, and you know how like one of the first things they do is like to help somebody clean their house out. They've stored too much stuff. They take everything and they move it out, and then we're gonna put items back in one at a time. So one tool that needs to be in every construction that students make, every construction, is the move tool. And you can find that by going all the way to the very, very top. If you take that move tool and drag it all the way over, you're now actually starting to pick the tools you want to appear on top. Now I got to think, how did I make that construction now? I constructed a line. So I'm gonna find the line tool. Again, we have to walk ourselves in order again. When you make an activity like this for students, you have to actually do the construction yourself first and write down the tools you use. And that way you'll know what tools to put in there when you're all done. I should have written them down before, but I didn't. But I need to find line and drag it over. Got to find, there it is. The students that we made a line first. And then next, if I recall correctly, we measured its slope. So let's go find the slope tool. And we'll drag it right over here. Okay, next they made a parallel line, did they not? So I'll go find the parallel tool. Parallel line, where is it? Parallel, they did that. And then they measured its slope again, so that way they had there. And that's all the tools I needed, right? But I always like to give kids one extra tool in here, and it's in every one that I make. I always like to give them the trash can. Delete, right? Because when you have a bunch of stuff there, you could just hit the trash can and like erase it like an easy teach board. It's kind of nice, right? So this is what we did. We only use those tools, and look at this. If you now hit apply, when you're all done, oh, by the way, one more thing, you could change the order. See how I can move the trash can up, just drag it, it'll move it up. I like to give kids maybe sometimes the order in which they do it, just drag it down. Move this up, then maybe that'll work. Yeah, okay. Once you have these the way you want it, hit apply, and look at that. This, teachers, this is an act of differentiating, believe it or not. When you sometimes students need the support of just you simply giving them only the tools they need, because it's gonna make some kids anxious. Where the heck is this, right? Well, this is much easier than 8,000 things popping at you, if you ask me, all right? So here's what we do now. Now, let's hit the trash can and let's actually erase all that stuff. Okay, let's erase all that. And now I want to just quickly see if I can make it. Let me actually put my grid on again because I almost forgot. Put the grid on. All right, but I got to go back and right click and for some reason it defaulted to minor grid lines. Don't know why, but that's okay. X-axis is still at 1. Y-axis still at 1. The grid, make it major. Okay, and it's at fix the grid, which is good. So now I want students to see something like this. So let's see if I can build it now quickly. So I make line AB. I make a parallel line. And then measure the slopes. Turn the tool off. And then, oh my gosh, the slopes are always the same, right? And there you go. That's what I want to discover here. Simple. So let me erase all that. And then, because I don't want it pre-built already, now I hit done. Once I get it custom tailored the way I want it, I hit done, and there it is. But hold on a second. Wait a minute. Tim, the heck's the toolbar? Where did everything go? It just shows the grid. And this is, I've gotten numerous emails from teachers over this because, excuse me, it's like so here's what you do. Yeah, I know it doesn't show. It's like a view only. So what you do here is go to advanced settings. All right. Whenever you custom make an applet to embed within a GeoGebra resource, like what we're doing right now, you show the toolbar. You could just do it right there. Check it out. Only those tools show up. I like to give students the same power that I had, if that makes sense. I like to show everything here. We want to drag labels. We want to do everything like that there. Okay. Yeah. All right. So let's actually, so we do that, right? And now it looks good. Now, I will tell you that an applet size that's 700 by 500 is ideal, especially for small Chromebook screens. If you start making this like bigger than 900 or 1,000, it takes a while to load. It gets clunky. And, I just think that I like to make a rule to go no more than 800 by, like 800 by 500 is, like looking like that. It doesn't really matter, but that's kind of how it looks like. I mean, I don't really need, if you look now, I don't need the input bar, so maybe I can get rid of that. Students aren't really inputting anything into the algebra view, right? They just need something like that to build on. That's it. So now let's hit done. And let's just for now hit save and close. So that way, I don't accidentally hit the move arrow back, and you know what I mean? I have built stuff in here and it's like, oh my gosh. And I accidentally, you know how your fingers can swipe left accidentally and it's like, no, nothing saved. I like to save occasionally, but then we're going to go back in the edit. It's saved. And so right here, right now, if you look at it, right, if I click on it, well, this is what the student's going to see so far. Okay, this is not bad. I can make a parallel line, and whatever. I could test it as a student would really fast, but I did that already, right? You see? Okay, that works. That's cool. They make the discovery. But now I want to decorate this thing up. I might want to type in some questions or some directions here. That I will leave to you. But if you want to ever go back and edit your activity, you go to these three dots, and you go to edit activity. Not open an app, but edit activity. That will bring you right to the activity that we made with the questions and the hello students words. All right. See how we're right here? So now I might want to call this, hey, quick warm up, and then I type in here, I'm going to give them directions, step 1, step 2. Some teachers may want to do it on a Google Doc and print it and, make copies. Again, the point is, I don't care if, to me, I don't really care if you give them virtual directions like typed here or if it's on paper. That doesn't matter. I could care less. And that's not important. The important thing is the students are engaged and they're discovering. They need to build themselves. And this will give them the tools to do it. I want to show you one more thing, though, that I love about GeoGebra is that if you click on the pencil here in the edit mode, click on that edit thing. All right. You can go back, go to advanced settings. Did you know that you can actually choose the app in which you want it to open? If right now it's defaults to classic, you can actually choose to open it in the geometry app. Look at this. Some teachers like the look and feel of the newer sort of apps. It doesn't actually, it's not showing it here, but watch this. If I hit done and then hit close, it will be there. It should be there. Surprised didn't show that, but look at this. Okay, prove me wrong. Hang on. Let's go edit. It worked for me last time. Always happens, right? Such is the case. Let's see. Edit. Advanced. Where's that toolbar? Let me show the toolbar again. Show menu. Hang on a second. Let me just go to edit applet here. I can edit this. Could be a workflow issue that I got to report. But normally this does not happen to me. I apologize. Hang on. Show toolbar. All right, give me a second here. I apologize. Just got to troubleshoot here. Let's go back to Classic then. Maybe it just wants to be in GeoGebra Classic. There it is. Let's just keep it in Classic for now. But I will show you how you could have other interfaces in here. Okay, so pretend that last 60 seconds just didn't happen. Let's just hit done. All right, or we can get rid of the input bar. My bad. We'll undo the input bar because we don't need to show that there. And then done. And then I could ask students questions. If you throw a question here and say, hey, question, 1, what do you notice Notice, describe, right? Whatever, something basic. This was meant to be a 3-minute warm-up for students to read this, to discover this, right? I hit save and close, and now guess what? There's my resource for my students. They warm up. Yesterday, in yesterday's webinar, I showed you how you can assign it in your Google Classroom class. You know what I mean? You can do, or in a GeoGebra group, that kind of thing. Or if you are if you use Microsoft OneNote by chance, you do whatever like that, you could actually copy the URL, embed it, the applet will show right in there. Again, the LMS is not relevant. What's relevant is obviously the students are building, and that's how I modify the toolbar for such a case like this, if that makes sense. Okay. Yeah. So I know it's half past, but are there any questions that you want to throw in the chat right now before I move on to the next thing? We'll do a 3D discovery for Algebra 1, Geometry, and Calculus. But any questions? You can feel free to throw them in the chat now. Really kind of set up here. Oh, here we go. Let's see. Embedding into Google Docs. Jessica, that's a great question. I know, I think, I tried that a year ago. And I know that I wasn't able to do it yet, but I think that I'll have to get back to you. Send me an email. When I tried a couple years, yeah, sure. I tried a couple years ago to work, and my colleague Brandon Dorman from California, he was actually able to embed an applet in there, but it was so small. I'll email me and I'll try to find that tweet. It was a tweet. It was like 2 or 3 years old though, but he made something that was like very small. He couldn't get the applet size, and I remember that was a Google thing and not a GeoGebra thing. So where do the Stacy's asked, where do the students' answers go when they respond? It all depends on the LMS in which you assign it. If students, so Stacy, if students just go here, I'm going to refresh the page, and I type in an answer of XYZ. Well, there's no submit to the teacher button like right here. Okay, Mr. S, to answer your question, go to GeoGebra's YouTube page. The first video that's there, I did a webinar yesterday where we did it in Google Classroom. All right, and at the end, remind me, I'll send you the link in this chat right here. Okay, but that was done yesterday. I'm happy to share the link with you. I should have had it preloaded. I apologize, but in order for a teacher to see student responses like this, the teacher, him or herself, needs to assign it through an LMS like Google Classroom or through GeoGebra Groups, which is another LMS where you can see student work. Okay. The other option is to simply have a, the only other option is to simply have a student create a GeoGebra account where they do this construction themselves, they save it, and then they send it to you. But the first video that I did yesterday answers all those questions. All those questions, like go to like about the middle or so, and you'll see. All right. Yeah. So you got it. But let's see. Just remind me at the end to give you the YouTube link, and I'll dig it up for you here. But let's actually do this. One thing that you can do is to yeah, well, even Google Classroom, Hamilton, even Google Classroom and GeoGebra Groups is a good way. I can tell you that GeoGebra, I wish it was ready now, but it's not. But GeoGebra is coming up with something pretty amazing where a teacher can actually have a lesson that's like sort of live, and they could see kids work, stuff like that. That's all I can really say. It should be coming out in a couple months, but it's just not ready yet. So GeoGebra Groups is kind of going to be ancient compared to this new interface that you're going to see. It's going to be awesome. It really is. So stay tuned. It's coming. But right here, right now, I'm going to go back to GeoGebra in a brand new tab. All right. And I'm going to show you another way to make a resource. Okay. We can do it, like I said, again, the way we just did it 20 minutes ago. We went to create an activity, and then we just kind of made it right there. But sometimes, some of you notice that if you actually go to, let's go up here. Let's go to the 3D calculator now. Okay. You can make a resource. You could actually start making a resource or activity from building in the app first. I mean, teachers don't realize that. If you go here to 3D calculator, whoop, this is my favorite app ever. Next Wednesday night at 9 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, I'm doing part 1 of a 1-hour webinar where we are going to take a deep dive in this app. Like, this app is so unbelievable. Middle school teachers, you don't got to freak out that there's a z-axis. I mean, if we think about it, we live in a 3-dimensional world. Why aren't, when we plot ordered pairs, right? Why? I mean, really the XY plane is just this, isn't it? And so the Z-axis is sticking up at you. So if students can plot 1, 0, it's really 1, 0, 0, right? We live in a 3D world. So to me, it's like, yes, John, Wednesday at 9 p.m. I'll be putting it on Twitter before for sure. You got it. But let's see. But here's what I want to do. All right, I'm going to make a resource for students here. So check this out. This might be of interest to you. I'm going to type in f of x equals x, x comma, right, 0 less than x less than 4. Just type that in there. Okay. So if we type that, like f of x equals x going from 0 to 4, all right. Again, what we're going to do now is we're going to create a resource that, I mean, again, I think something like this is the students could just simply build from scratch, but sometimes teachers want something that's sort of scaffolded for kids, you know, this would be one thing here. So let's hit, if you hit enter, notice it goes like that, and you could change the domain of that function, right? But now let's actually type in, go here, let's type in n equals 0 DEG and hit enter. Type in n equals 0. I'm too lazy to find a degree key on the keyboard. I just type in DEG and hit enter, and it makes a slider. Okay. So, and again, nothing happens here. But what we're going to do next is we're going to actually rotate. Let's type in the word rotate. Right. Function f, angle n. Right? Again, don't jump over this parametric stuff. We don't need it right now. All right. In fact, middle school students won't even bother using it. Calculus, maybe, but F eventually. Fn, and but actually we could do that in pre-calc too, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. Fn, and let's type in x-axis. Just ignore the bottom, just type that command right there. We are telling GeoGebra to spin function f n degrees about the line x-axis. And you got to capitalize that A. Okay? Type it in just like that. And you get it like this. Now, and you see here, we're rotating, right? You can see how we're rotating that function about the x-axis here. Now, I want to type in one more command, and that's the surface command. Please make a surface now. Just type in the word surface. F, N, X, axis. I find it better to ignore the automatic prompts, just pretend they don't exist, like the things that populate and come up, just ignore them. Just type in surface, F, N, x-axis, and hit enter. And look at that. I love that. Yeah, it's pretty cool, isn't it? Geometry teachers who, you know, where your students struggle with this concept of cross-section, right? You can have your students start building these things and telling you everything. And don't you want them to tell you what the surface of revolution is going to look like? You know, you could have this here. And so I have that, right? Kind of like there. And I'm actually going to, I want to make F and F1 green. So if I right click on the box, if you will, and go to settings, I could go to color and just make it to black. Like that. So like, see how that the graph is, let's see how that black is graphed there. Or another way I could do it is if I just touch, if I just simply touch, I could just touch in here and just make the color black right here. Oh, I just made the surface black, but maybe I want to make it red. I don't know. But you see what I mean? Again, red and green are kind of ugly together. Red and green, did you know red and green are a big no-no when it comes to accessibility for students with colorblind, students who are colorblind? Really, red and green cannot go together because they have a hard time distinguishing between the colors. It's actually not fair to tell students, look at the red graph and look at the blue graph. You cannot, when we author for like publishers and stuff, we cannot refer to functions by color because that discriminates, believe it or not. You can make a color here, you can make it look like any way you want. Right? I like that. Right? Point is, you could do whatever, but let's, I don't want to get too carried away here. Change the opacity of that thing. So now, right here and right now, right? I'm making a resource for Algebra 1 and geometry students to just simply build surfaces of revolution. But now, I want to create this into a resource for students where they have to predict, if you will, because you know what I'm going to ask? I'm going to ask my students to do. I want to ask my students to author a function that causes the surface of rev to be a cylinder. You see what I mean? What kind of a function now is going to cause that surface of revolution to not be a cone anymore? What's it going to cause to be a cylinder, right? And you think, oh, wait a minute. And students are going to think, maybe if it's, oh, a constant function, right? Okay. And then they could test it out, if that makes sense. All right. By the way, the functions here, you could do trig functions. You could do any function, right? The sine curve, I always love showing this looks like a fish, right? So calculus teachers, this applies to you a lot because don't your students often struggle to see what the heck the surface they're writing the definite integral to find the volume of is? But here they don't have to really struggle. They could just do something like this to sort of see it better, you know? And I could change the function at any time. And in fact, I can rotate that surface about the y-axis. Just change it to y. Look at that. Looks like a Christmas tree stand, doesn't it? You know what I mean? So again, this resource, this thing I'm going to build to a resource here to make it like multi-purpose for students. I know, like barbarians, indeed, John. I struggled with that, but once I saw this, I'm like, oh my gosh, where was this when I started teaching back in 01, 02? I needed it, you know? But like here, this is so cool. Let me just go back and change this. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. So basically, I'm going to go back and keep it the way I had it. So change it to just X for now. Make the cone. Right. I'm going to keep it there and there. Also, here's one other tip that I find is helpful. You can actually hide things here that you don't want students to see. If you feel that you'll have students get all intimidated by this, what you can do is go here. If you click on sometimes if I'm working with middle school students, I might not want to show all this stuff. If you want to hide it, you make the object auxiliary. So you click on the dots there, go to settings, and make it auxiliary. Auxiliary right here, check auxiliary here. And by checking that, you'll make it disappear. You'll make it disappear from here. And then if you just click on the gray box here, see if you click on the box, keep it open, you can make that auxiliary. And look at that. And so now, oh, I made the slider auxiliary. Hang on, I got to undo. The kids need the slider. Whoops, my bad. So if I go here, go to settings, auxiliary, and I'll go to here, settings, auxiliary. Let me just click on this, settings. There we go. You see, middle school and elementary school students, teachers, I think it's just cool just to show your students this, right? But pre-calc and calculus teachers, we could be talking about parametric equations. There's no parametrics help us build the world. They really are. They are some of the most under-taught concepts in all of mathematics. Parametric equations are so important. But now I'm going to make this into a resource with questions. How do you do that? You do this. You go over to here. You go to File. You go to Save. And I'm going to call it class opener 1, 2, 3, just so I can know it here, right? Again, over in the menu, File, Save, class opener 1, 2, 3. I hit Save. It says saving. Down here, it's saving, save successfully. All right, we got a question here. Chat. You got it. The slider in the graphic window, yes. Yep. So right here, you got it, Samuel. So right here, right? Now what I'm gonna do is, since it's saved, I'm gonna exit out of that tab. Okay. Now to make that, now I could do one of two things. I could just, I could, if I wanted to, just give my students this graph. For example, watch this. If I click on, there's two options here. I'll give you the first option. You click, don't click on it, but just go to the dots, click on the dots, and you go to open an app, right? You can go back in and edit this, but if you give this to students, watch this. I'm gonna drop what I just did in the chat there. Chat. If all of you go to, whoops, hang on a second. If I copy this right here and if I copy that URL and give it to you, let's say you're students in my class. If you open that up, right, you can literally you can work on it as a student in my class. You save it to your own GeoGebra account, and then you hit share, and then you could submit it in Google Classroom or Schoology or name your LMS. You could submit it that way by just giving the URL, okay? That way. That's one way to share work. But the catch is that there's no questions or resources. Like I have questions, I want to see answers, right? This is just a blank, people just share graphs sometimes, and that's fine, all right? But if you want to actually create a resource with questions, I'm going to go back to that previous tab there. What you want to do is go here to the snowman, and then you want to go to edit activity. If you want to just give the kids the graph, the students the graph, you just go open an app and share the URL. That's it. All right. But if you want to create a lesson with questions and answers and videos and stuff, you have to actually go to edit activity right here. All right. So let's go to edit activity. You see, what most people don't realize is that when you save a GeoGebra graph for construction, you actually end up making an activity or a resource, but it's blank. You can't really do anything with it unless you edit it, right? So I'm going to call this instead, I'll call it I'll call it surface of rev warm up. See what I mean? And now you notice here, this is enormous. Look how long this is. This is like at least 1400 pixels. So I need to go to advanced settings, click on the pencil to edit, pencil. And then see that's 1678, that's way too big. Again, let's make it 900 here. Right? 900 by 500. See how it's looking a little bit nicer now? Now, if I go back into edit applet, look at this. Go back into edit here. You can edit it like you just did sort of online. So I'm just gonna just drag this over so there's more room. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit, you know what I mean? So that kind of thing. And the z-axis can stay. If you want to hide the z-axis, you can hide it. I don't think it really matters, but and so let's hit done when we're done editing and see how that looks a lot better, right? At this stage of the game, see how it says it's opening in 3D Calculator? This is the 3D Calculator app right here. Before, in the first half hour, we made in Classic. It stayed in Classic. Here we made it in 3D, but you could see that you can make your surface of revolution, have your kids play. It's just this is just an applet embedded within a bigger resource now. That's all it is. Okay, but now I like to give students the same ability that I had. You know, that I could show all this stuff. Maybe you don't want it. I don't know, but I could show this. For some reason, it always goes back to the top of the page. I don't know why, but it doesn't matter. It's just drag up and down. And then I like to enable kids to right click here too. See what I mean? And look at that. Maybe I could go in, go out. I might be able to go to the settings here. Sometimes you can edit it right here. I don't know. Maybe I need to make that font smaller because 24 is kind of big. 16, whatever. But you see what I mean? Not that that looks a little bit nicer. You could, if you hold down the shift key, shift, and you can move it, hit shift again, you can move it up and down, right? Holding shift and dragging is a pretty powerful tool in this app. All right. Yes, you can use an inequality to create a solid revolution. That's what we, no, it's got to be no, Esteban, I don't think so. It has to be a function. It could be a line, a segment, a circle, a circumcircular arc, a circular arc. You could rotate almost any line or any two-dimensional entity about a line to create it, but not an inequality, I don't think. No. All right. But it looks like that. But you know what? It looks good. I hit done. Now I can start asking my questions. Hey, kids, you know, or actually let me delete that. I'll add a question now. And I'll ask students to create a function that causes surface of rev to be a cylinder. And you know what I could do here if you wanted to? We could actually duplicate this thing. Let's give the students like a template 5 times. You know what you do? I love this tool. It's just copy. You want to duplicate that applet, just copy it, and you can move it anywhere in the resource you want. So copy it. Look at that. So maybe I could go edit here. I want you to create a function that causes a surface of rev to be a cylinder. Right? And so there you go. All the attributes that are practically the same, right? And right here, I hit save and close. Got to save and close it, right? To avoid losing changes. And look at that. So eventually, once I'm done editing this activity, I'm going to throw this in the Google Classroom, and all student work will save, as I showed you, as was there in the first video. But look at that. When a student does this, oh, you want me to make a cylinder? It's got to be 3, f of x equals 3, and the student leaves it just like that. See what I'm saying? And that's kind of what it looks like. I'm going to show you what can actually come out of this here. Give me a second. I made this for teachers as an intro to 3D. 3D getting 1 second. But what I just showed you in the last 10, 20 minutes is literally how I made this resource right here, which I'll drop to you in the chat right now. All right, I see the question there. So Gail, the way, right now, no, but the way that most teachers and students, Gail, that use GeoGebra will just simply go to the 3D graph and just basically give them the URL to the graph and not the resource with like a questions and stuff in it. So like this is kind of like what most people don't like do right here. But please look there. But to answer your question, Gail, I'm saying is that let's say I go to, let me just go to 3D again quickly. So let's suppose I want students to build off of this. I'm going to make a sphere, and I'm going to go to File, Save. All right, I'm going to call it sample sphere for Gail or something like that, right? And so I'll hit Save. It's saving, right? So Gail, let's say you're a student in my class. I'm just going to go hit Share right here, or Share up there. It doesn't matter. It's already saved, right? And then I hit Copy this. So what I'm going to do, Gail, is I'm going to throw it right in the chat right now. And you'll see what I mean. So now go ahead and open that. It ends in EV3. If you open that, you will see just the app open. It's just the app itself and no questions. Or this is not a resource. This is an app and it has a sphere thrown in it. What a lot of teachers do with students is they just simply give students the URL. And now let's suppose I'm going to take the role of student now. The student's going to put some cubes in here for whatever reason, right? And the student's going to make their nets. Oh, by the way, here's a little sneak peek for next Wednesday's webinar, right? You can see here, oh, wow. And so let's suppose, Gail, you, the student, do this. And now, oh, I got a class is going to go. Let me send the teacher what I did so far this period. I go to save. I got to change the name. Otherwise, it's going to override the file. But I'm going to, or I could just simply do this. I'm going to, if I call it the same name, it'll override the old file with this new file here. So then I go hit share yet again. I'm the student in your class, say Gail. I copy that, and then I'll type it right in the chat. And if you, it's the same link, but open that same link again. If you refresh the page, you should see the new file. And each of those URLs is what the student will give you in Google Classroom or Schoology or you name your LMS. Have them submit the link, and there it is. Okay. But this is submitting a this is not a resource. This is an app with a construction open in it. A resource is really something like this. A resource can have questions, directives, and it has GeoGebra applets like apps built within them directly, if that makes sense there. All right. So yeah, that is how you can author GeoGebra resources literally from scratch. You could do it kind of like, basically we did it 2 ways. We did it the first way where we simply went to our profile. This is like going in the front door, right? Here's my activity and I'm gonna add elements and whatever. I can assign questions and constructions to my students later. That's one way. The other way to make a resource is to simply just do what I did here. This is a backdoor approach. I'm just going to build in the app first, and then I hit save. And then I'm going to basically, now I save that. Check it out. In this backdoor approach, I simply, see what I mean? Again, if I go to open an app, it's gonna open it in the app. It's gonna look just like you saw before. But if I go to activity now I can build a lesson on this page where students have to do something with it, if that makes sense. So I have to do what I just did last time. Okay, and then whatever. Okay. So it's 55 minutes in, and that kind of shows it. The only thing I'll show you unrelated is the folders. People are like, oh, what's sold? So if I create a folder here, just a little plugin for folders, I'll call it sample. Hit create. You can start dragging your GeoGebra resources in the folder. So if this one I made, I could just drag it into the sample folder. See right here, this was what I did for my webinar. Now, unfortunately, at this point, you cannot share folders with your colleagues. You can only share books or resources. But resources are just like these little things. This is called a resource here, right? Something like this, questions and some prompts and stuff. But the GeoGebra folder is basically a convenience for you where you can stash everything. Like, for example, all my augmented reality stuff I have in my folder, I know where to find it quickly. If I gave you this link, you will not be able to find it because you're not logged in as me. The folder is just a simple convenience for you to store your stuff personally where you like it, instead of like making everything a favorite and then you can't find it after. Okay. But that's that. So what I will do at this point is I'll stop screen sharing, and then I will actually I'll stay on. If you got to go right ahead. But if you want to stick around for 5-10 minutes of questions and answers, you're welcome, John. Feel free.